Okay, so I printed out some graphs for you to kind of look at offline, and I was just going to kind of run through them. So obviously this is a really simple one. You just state the x values for the range and the y values. And I know that wasn't the type that you were talking about. All right, so for this one, like you said, for the domain, you go from the left to the right. And so you look to see what's being covered. So for this one, we go from here to here for the x values. So we're looking at from -3 to +3. And if you write that, you can write that as an inequality. So we would put an equal to sign because it's closed. Sorry, this should be a less than. Or you could write it as interval notation, which will be from -3 to +3 with a bracket. Now, if these were open circles here, we would use a parentheses. I use interval notation more than I do the inequalities, and I'm sure Miss Green has showed you both of these, I hope. And then the range, we're looking from the bottom to the top. So what is being covered from the bottom to the top? So from here, it's going from -4 to +3, and we're including both of those. So -4 to +3, okay? All right, let's take a look at this one. The domain, we're going from -4, and it's an open circle, so you're gonna need to have parentheses around that, to going to the right here, and there's an arrow here that's pointing to the right. So we would have to do a positive infinity there with an open symbol. If we were going to do it with an inequality, you would say, you would just say x has to be greater than -4, if that makes sense. This should be a positive. Okay. And then the range, we start here at 1, and because there's an arrow here, that means you're going to be pointing up. So you would say y has to be greater than 1, greater than or equal to 1, because that's a closed circle here. So it goes up. So you could also say 1 to a positive infinity, and that would be a bracket there. Okay. All right, here's a circle. And the circle, you can see we're going from here to here. So we're going from -2 to +2, and we're going to close those in here because they're closed, right? And in the range here, we're going from the bottom to the top, and we start here on the y value at 0, and we're going to include that, and we're going up to 4. Okay. And again, if you were to write this in as an inequality, you would say x has to be less than or equal to 2, but greater than or equal to -2. Okay, and the same thing, y has to be less than 4, but greater than or equal to 0. Obviously, this one you said was obvious for linear. You're repeating going to the left, you're repeating going to the right. So it's -infinity to positive infinity for both the domain and the range. This is an absolute value function. Notice the arrow is going to keep going to the right, keep going to the left. So obviously the domain here is from -infinity to positive infinity. And then the range, we're going to start here at -5. So we're going to go from -5 to positive infinity. And that's going to be closed on the -5, and we leave it as parentheses there. Okay. All right, let's skip down and do one like this one. So this one, we're going from left to right. See how we have an arrow pointing to the left and an arrow pointing to the right. And even though there's a space here, there is a dot here on this value of x, okay? So that means that's still being covered. So that means everything from left to right is being covered. So for this domain, you're going to have -infinity to positive. But then the range here, the range is a little bit different here. The range values that's being covered is just notice how everything on 1 is being covered, right? And then it's still being covered here, and then everything on +3 would also be covered. So here is a weird one. You would just say y has to be equal to 1 and y has to be equal to 3, okay? And let's look at this one. All right, we're looking from left to right. The arrow is pointing left, so that we have a -infinity for the domain. And then we go to positive 2 here, and it's going to be an open circle. Okay, so that's a domain. And then the range, we start here at -2. It's including it, okay? And then this arrow pointing up means it's going to go on forever. So that means that y has to be greater than or equal to -2. Okay, or you could say -2 to positive infinity, open, and that's going to be a closed. All right, let's look at this domain. So we're going from left to right again. We look from left to right, and if you notice, it doesn't start until the -3 and the positive 2. So what we would say here is x is equal to the -3, and you could also say x is equal to the positive 2. And then the range, this is pointing down, this is pointing up, still being covered on the 2. So we would say -infinity to positive infinity for the range. Okay. Let's see. Are there any other ones? This one, notice how this arrow is pointing to the left, so the domain, because it's pointing to the left, we would do -infinity, and then it stops right here at 4. So it goes to 4, and we're going to include that. And we leave that open. And then the range, it starts right here at 0, technically, right? And then it goes up to positive infinity because that arrow is still going to be pointing up, okay? So we close that, parentheses there, okay? And then let's do one more. Let's see here. Let's do this one. It's a little bit weird one. All right, so now we go from left to right. It starts here on the -4, so I'm going to include that. So it's -4. And then it goes all the way until the 3. Okay, notice how this is 2, but it goes further to the 3. So the 3 is what's being included, and it's an open circle here. Okay, that's an open circle, so we're going to leave it in parentheses. And then the other one, the range, we're going from -5 to +5. And we're leaving both of those open. Okay. Okay. And I hope this clears things up for you. Let me know if you have any other questions.